Sorry, just.
I was just thinking what you're actually talking
So could you make in that white? I'm sorry, I just cannot read.
Oh, yeah, I can make.
Blue background.
Yeah, like a white, kind of shade in there.
Okay, let me. There we go. Thank you. Okay. So I think for the roads, I'm hearing some alignment around support for both of the pre-survey options. So if you could, yeah, put that somewhere. That would be the digital data and the GIS LiDAR. And I think the two, to use the word options, proposals that I'm hearing are a modified option 1. So the one focused on hydrologic connectivity, that would include element of data collection related to sediment modeling, that then could set us up for additional work related to sediment. Or option 2, that is pretty much as written, but we would add a statement in the research agenda that clarifies how the use of the sediment, how the sediment model would be used. Those are what I heard as the 2 proposals. And thank you, Emily, for capturing that. So I guess just looking at the clock with our 30 minutes here to the end, I would like to do just a quick temperature check again on both of those, unless anyone has like final thing they want to say about, or if I got one of those proposals wrong.
I think those are the 2 proposals that
Okay.
I understood.
Great. So how are folks feeling about a modified option 1? That would be option 1 plus data collection related sediment. A little vague, but we got it. 0 to 5.
Less enthused.
Okay. So folks online, sorry, I hope you can hear me. Are you tracking? Okay.
I want to demonstrate my encouragement for this one since I want to push the option 2. So,
Okay, so some,
like if I had to vote for this one.
Julie, and
Yeah.
modified option 1,
Yeah.
what would be your 1 to 5?
A modified option 1, what is the modified?
It's up there.
oh, I'm sorry.
That we would sample all of the things used for sediment modeling, but not do sediment.
If I would do sediment modeling too, either way.
Well, that
That's
would
what it's option 2.
We
Okay.
You.
No, sort of like some people good, some middle. I think option 2 would be option 2 as is, which would include the sediment modeling. And in addition, we would include a statement around how those sediment models would be used to address some of the concerns around. How are folks generally feeling about option 2?
6.
Well, I got the other one, so. On mine,
And we got a
That's
couple of months of Rick's at that.
Dave, is that 3?
2.
It's 2.
Okay.
2.
2.
2. It's good.
Okay,
What about?
so
You got 2 2s.
I think option
We're
1
pretty
was
split.
a little more in the middle, but I'm curious, is there any folks who have concerns about option 2? Is there any way to make that workable, or can you help again sort of restate your concerns with option 2?
Yeah, I mean, I can. Well, I was gonna say my support, so when you.
Well, let's
That's
focus on-
you go first. It's your eyes for concerns.
If, you know, if I'm channeling
the membership that we have gotten agreements on things many, many times and statements of use and things like that. And they have not been followed through on. And so I would be doing my members a disservice if I didn't, wait for that.
Is there anything? I think kind of a lot of variations are on the table. So is there anything that would or help us understand or help me understand sort of what the biggest concern with that approach is? I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
No, like I said, I would be fine with option one as modified. I think that, whether or not we specify the use of the model, the fact that that can be used to, potentially arbitrarily change and focus and make our rule sets more prescriptive, would not be something that our members would support. So even if it says that that's not how it would be used, I'm part of too many things where things have been said and come back on that. It's just not something that we can agree to, which is fine. I mean, if the vote comes out and the one opposed, but still support.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. I guess I'm just trying to if the statement isn't enough, is there something else that would help get you there? Then I'll stop.
I know, I mean,
focus question.
I'll think about it between now and the time that we vote. As of right now, I can't think of something that would get us there, but I appreciate the space.
Yeah, I mean, I think this group has been pretty good at trying to get to that place, so I think we can still do that. It's just helpful to understand what everyone's constraints are.
From a scientific perspective, it would not be appropriate to use it to set targets or performance measures of any sort, because it's just, the estimates are just not accurate enough. Would be useful to look at trends over time and relative amounts, but to try to set some target that says we're going to get, X tons of sediment off the forest, and that's what we're shooting for, and no more than that is totally inappropriate. So I think from a scientific perspective, you would have a lot of pushback in addition from your members.
Yeah.
Pushback.
Well,
I just see Annie.
And I appreciate that, but the opposite has been true time and time again in the political sphere. So where science has been weaponized from one perspective over another, and then other science is brought to bear and then not trusted because it's brought from another perspective. So, and that's just the political reality. So I appreciate your ethics. They aren't always there in the political.
Again, I think we're trying to hone in on an approach and hearing some real concerns about the statement piece, not quite hitting the mark.
Dave also had it too.
Oh.
You might ask Dave.
Yes, sorry, Dave. Thoughts are just trying to better understand concerns about
guess-
options.
Yeah, regarding the option two, if I'm understanding everything correctly here, option two would be to go ahead and perform the sediment model. Whereas option one is just collecting the data so that maybe perhaps in some time in the future, you would want to run the sediment model. My concern with option two is, as I understand it, is that if the error bars are so large on a sediment model, then what good is it, and what's the point of running it if it could be misused or misinterpreted, or that's that sort of thing, versus the good data that we could collect on option one. And so I just would hate to see information be used and not couched properly so that people would be misunderstanding and misinterpreting it, et cetera. So that's the reason why I'm not as enamored with option two as I am with option one.
And I guess the reason why I like option two better than the modified option one. To me, the modification on option one doesn't, with all due respect, I don't see the utility of the modification to it, because if you're going to collect all that information, either you're going to run the data, you're going to run the model, or you're not. If you don't run the model, you just wasted a bunch of time collecting information that's not going to be used. And so if you're going to run the model, just run the model. And that's option two. And the utility in option two I see over option one is that whereas the total amounts, from what I'm hearing, the total amounts cannot be trusted, end of story. And that is a real concern I have. But the relative amounts relative to each other in a given area can be very informative and useful relative to what you would get in this system without disconnection. This is what you're, and with disconnection, this is what it looks like. And so now you're able to calibrate and show some real value to the work that's occurring, work that we're going to be investing in on land, on private lands. And it would be useful to show that, you know, we are doing all of this good stuff that is producing, you know, all of these great values out in the landscape. And so that's my argument for doing option 2 over option 1.
Well, that's something because I was gonna ask you if you could restate or. That was it. I think maybe it's things.
But maybe if I could propose,
Please.
being as close to the time as we are, we do have to meet in July. We are pretty close on this. I think people are, there could be time for, you know, frankly, for Amanda and I to have a conversation between now and July, and, you know, and Dave to talk to somebody, and maybe would be better understanding going into that July meeting where people could feel a little bit more comfortable one way or the other. And or maybe at least surface a question or two that would be useful to have in that discussion in July. So it might just be that not that we want to punt, but
I guess
this has been a really good conversation. I think it's gotten us a lot closer and a lot better understanding.
that's a question for Terry, because we had sort of put a pin in the question of, do we want a work group to tackle this? Do we want Terry to put together a draft? I think this would leave a little more ambiguity in this particular piece, which is possible, but I guess, Terry, I'm curious if you have a perspective on that. Does this give you some direction? Or-
Certainly, it does give me some direction. I can certainly write most of the document in terms of everything, including the initial draft idea on the modified Eastern Oregon slopes proposal, and then I'd have to leave something blank here, you know, write some of the framework for the roads connectivity question, but at the end of the day, you know, there's still a modified option 1 and an option 2 that are on the table for discussion. So not quite sure how to proceed with that specific part other than to leave it blank.
Wendy, are you gonna respond to that, or did you have another?
My thought was addressing stuff, but I did kind of think maybe you check in with IRST and INR about like how they feel about this, because I kind of felt like in the sense of the proposal, if there, you know, expert opinions about good options, and so for modifying the options, sort of like how that feels, if feedback on the process. So that was just a question of that.
I have no problem with modifying the options at all. I mean, I don't think the rest of the IRST would either. Our job is to provide you all with some tools and for your decision making. And so, yeah, I don't see a problem there. Now, if there is some additional information that you all need from IRST to help make your decision, you know, if there are questions about error bars on the, you know, estimates of sediment or something like that that would be helpful, then let us know and we'll try to get those answers for you.
And I'm assuming you'd speak up if our modification didn't make sense to you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, and what you said, Seth, I think about collecting the data and not running the model. I mean, I think there's some wisdom there. It's information that doesn't need to be collected if you're not gonna take the next step. So.
Amanda?
I just had a question, kind of going back to our our proposed research questions, 1B, which is the baseline report. And to remind folks, how does the status of hydrologic connectivity differ based on landowner type, east-west region? So as it relates to the research agenda, we have to make a decision at some point on whether or not it's a kind of a statewide approach, or if we actually want to get to the specificity down to what we asked for in 1B, which would significantly increase the cost based on the number of sample sizes. Now, remind you that by going forward, if we choose to go forward with the pre-survey option 1 and 2, maybe that'll make that cost estimate decrease a little bit, because that, you know, that pre-survey stuff might help, but that is where that big swing comes in as far as the cost. So, you know, we'll need to know for the research agenda if the board is moving forward with something on hydroelectric connectivity that's closer to like $1.5 million or $4.5 million. We don't have to like make that decision now, just, I don't know if we want to give any
Talk
direction
about the third
to Terry at this point or not. I don't know. Sorry.
I
Terry.
mean, yes, we definitely should. I don't think we're gonna accomplish that in the 15 minutes that we have. So I guess, do we think that it's possible to get to a vote in an hour and a half on our July 7th meeting if we pause here?
Do we even have an option not to? Seems like that was in the report.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
no, we have to hit the
Oh,
deadline.
is it possible?
I mean, do we have an option not to separate it by ownership and east-west? I thought that was, that's stipulated in the.
I think we decided that.
We did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
We
okay.
decided
Never mind.
based upon the
Okay.
differences in rural categories for
Okay.
east versus west, and because of it's the massive differences in precipitation regime for east and west, and then smalls, it was because of the FRIA versus the RCA. I think that was my understanding of why we thought it was important.
So did we answer our own question? Bob?
So it sounds, I mean, my understanding is that to answer that research question, that final research question that we have, we would need to be at that higher end of the standpoint.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I want to make sure that Terry has as much as he needs.
I know, 'cause I was-
I don't want to go backwards and relitigate a question we already.
Yeah.
Yes. Can I just send this out to Terry now or?
I'm sorry, it was the last 30 seconds was a little jarbled because a bunch of people were talking at the same time. So I heard the question of including east-west and big, small, but I didn't hear a conclusion on that.
So we decided, Terry, based on our own question, that we had already had that discussion and
Yeah.
decided we did need to do that. So,
We do.
yes.
Yeah.
So that would then push the numbers to the higher end of the scale.
Yep.
I was wrong. We could.
That was the quickest thing we ever did.
Thank you.
You're already excited.
Okay, so I think our homework is that, Terry, you're going to take this table and craft the research agenda for Eastern Oregon steep slopes, which is, I think we have a decision there.
Yep.
And then for the roads, we have 2 options on the table. Whichever one we pick would include both of the pre-survey options. And I don't think we are going to be able to, or maybe should, make a decision on that today.
Sure. And
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I can write it to that. And is the intent that I draft this and send it out for review to the whole group as opposed to working with a work group to refine it?
Deanna wants to respond and then Dave after, sorry.
I would prefer it going to a work group. I will elect myself. I haven't been on a work group in a while, so I'd be happy to work with Terry because I feel like if there's more committee members engaged with Terry, then there's going to be less sort of editing need, hopefully, you know, when it comes back to us, since we're gonna be on a pretty tight timeline. I would be more than happy to help Terry engaged in that, so.
Thanks, Amanda. Dave's got it.
Steve?
Just a quick question now, if in order to answer some of my questions that are informing which option I choose here, do I send the questions to Terry and then he forwards them on to the IRST for them to give us a response, or how do we want to do that? And when do we want to have a deadline so that, you know, we have ample time to get answers and whatnot?
Great question.
I guess, well, I don't know. I thought we had agreed questions that we had. Well, how did you handle the questions that came to you for the roads, I guess, Terry?
I compiled all those questions and sent to the IRST co-chairs. You're talking about the ones from last week.
Right?
Yep.
Because I know we've
compiled
talked
and sent
about,
to the co-chairs.
yeah, a concern in the past of sort of one-off questions to full IRST that don't represent all of ANSI, so I'm
Yeah,
not sure how to.
Yeah, it's a tough one, Dave. You remember all the time we spent answering there. So it's useful to speak with one voice from AMC to IRST and IRST back to AMC, but it takes a lot of time to do it. But I respect the fact that you've got questions that you know, in order to try to get to. So I don't know what the best way to do it is, but to task that onto the full IRST seems, I don't know if that's the right way to do it. So.
I mean, again, my question just centers around the use of data that has significant potential uncertainty and error, you know, whether that's a relative sense or an absolute sense, they can still have a big impact. And so having been down that road before, so I would just, that's all I need to know, just somebody that knows something about these sedimentation models, given all the variables employed and what we're talking about.
Maybe the best way to do it would be to what Terry is talking about. Maybe if you could give your question to Terry, and then perhaps Terry could send that question to the co-chairs of IRST. Maybe the two of you could, you know, sort of quickly respond with a joint response similar to what you did here verbally. That could help.
And I would consult with Josh Loring and Michael Fest to answer the question, because they're the IRST experts on that topic. So I can get an answer for you and get it back.
Okay, so I'll send something to Terry in the next couple of days, if that's okay.
Yep, that sounds good.
Yeah, and I think just as long as that answer comes back to the whole group.
Yes, and I appreciate you doing that, Dave, because that is I mean, that's the concern from a lot of people around the table here. So getting that might be useful to help us get across the finish line in July. So thanks.
And just as a quick follow-up to that, I mean, it sounds like you guys had a really good conversation with, it's Kathy Dubé. And so it sounded like she had some insight on the usefulness of their model. And so any synthesis on that, I think, would add to whatever you guys are able to answer as far as Dave's question, you know, what their experience was, its usefulness, so that if we do go with option 2, some sort of use statement or intent statement, you know, having some information to go off of in some context to craft that intent statement, for me, would be helpful in getting me to a place of agreement on that option. That's the way that we go.
Great. Any last thoughts before, oh, sorry, you volunteered to be on a work group.
Is anyone else?
It's okay.
Terry.
Really easy breakthrough. It's really very challenging because she wants to have something that we're all ready to.
Yes, volunteers for work group with Amanda. Terry.
Yeah, I'm happy to be part of it. That's helpful.
Okay. I'll work with you two, Casey and Amanda, to figure out a time to meet and figure out how to move forward.
Thank you.
And there's still room if anybody leaves this meeting and feels like they
Absolutely.
really like to do it.
Hey, Terry. Hey, Terry, go ahead. Go ahead and add me since I do have a little bit of sentiment.
Josh,
Maybe
okay.
Maybe I'd be a good addition. And also since I was kind of ambiguous between modified option 1 and option 2.
Well, you can do the pre-survey. This is your.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're gonna end here, unless I missed anything, Terry, otherwise I think we're gonna adjourn.
Sounds good.
Thank you all.
Ooh.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
It was